Okay, hello and welcome to our study, our owl study. We studied the effects of rainfall and visitor presence on the Mexican spotted owls in Utah. A little bit of background about our study. Mexican spotted owls, they're large predatory birds. They have a decreased population due to they're under threat currently, and that's another reason why it's really important for studies such as these, because they are under the threatened species category, which is really sad. So the range that we were studying, they're typically found in southwestern U.S. and northern Mexico. For our study, we decided to pick to look upon 3 different parks, one of which is the Dark Canyon, Elephant Canyon, and Twin Canyon. And these environments are foresty, rocky canyon lands. So, to go over the questions for this specific study, we wanted to see the difference in the amount of biomass consumed by Mexican spotted owls between the months with the more rainfall and months with less rainfall. And the months that we decided to study were April through October. Another question is, does the presence of visitors during peak park seasons, which again was April through October, affect the amount of biomass consumed by Mexican spotted owls? And then lastly, what relationship, if any, is there between the amount of rainfall, number of visitors, and biomass consumed by the owls? So to go over our variables, so our response variable was the amount of biomass consumed. We used Dr. Wiley's data for this to collect this, because as you all may know that he's been studying these beautiful species for quite some time now. And then our explanatory variable, they are we collected precipitation numbers using the PRISM climate data for our specific season, again, which was April through October, and we used the years 92 through 95. And then our visitor numbers, we went ahead and collected these through the National Parks website. Okay, on to our hypothesis. So our hypothesis was if the seasonal rainfall and visitor numbers in the park decrease during a given year in the busy season, and the amount of biomass consumed by spotted owls decreases during the busy season, then we can infer that the amount of park visitors and seasonal rainfall negatively affect the eating habits of Mexican spotted owls during the busy season. And to go over what we found, I'm going to hand it on over to lovely Amanda.
All right, so for data collection, we, as Kat said, we looked at precipitation data online, specifically from 1992 through 1995, and we collected the data for the full year, even though we were still only looking at April through October. But we did have a little bit of overlap with some of the owl pellets that were collected by Dr. Wiley and his team. So there were a few months that had data for both. So to start, we made some graphs. These are just samples of the graphs of the data that we collected. Most graphs only have a few data points, and the graphs tend to contradict each other rather than show a consensus or trend. The graph on the bottom right, the Dark Canyon 1995 data, this graph would show a positive correlation because as rainfall amount is lower, biomass is also lower. However, the graph on the top left from 1994, this graph shows a negative correlation because as rainfall increases, biomass consumed decreases. And you can see we have a point for May and a point for June, and then it drops off because our next point was for August. So we missed a month in there. Not we, but there was no data for a point there. And this is typically what most of our graphs look like. In total, we made 12. We had 4 graphs for the 4 years for each park. So we had 3 parks. So here is Twin Canyon. This is located in Zion National Park. And as you can see, there are no clear conclusions that we can draw from the graphs. I sampled 94 and 92 here because the other years, 93 and 95, only had 1 or 2 data points, so it wouldn't show any helpful information. This is not a reflection of interaction between rainfall and biomass consumed, but rather it's a reflection of our poor selection of data that was collected. And finally, this is just an image of some data from Elephant Canyon. This is located in Canyonlands National Park. Similar across all fronts. And so we collected visitor data as well. Unfortunately, the national park websites only provide total visitors for a calendar year and not by month. So I can only show, this is why it wasn't on the same graphs as the precipitation and biomass data, because it wasn't by month. Also, we only could sample Zion National Park and Canyonlands National Park, as Monte La Salle, which is where Twin Canyon, our location was, is actually a national forest and they don't count visitor numbers. Okay, our results. So we ran into some hurdles. We weren't able to jump over them, but during some years, it appears there is a correlation between lower rainfall levels and lower amounts of biomass consumed, with the previous driving the latter. However, other years and places provide no such correlation. Based off of the pellet data that was collected, it was not possible to reach any sort of conclusion as to whether the amount of rainfall had any effect on the biomass consumed by owls. More hurdles. When it came to determining if the presence of visitors had affected the amount of biomass that was consumed, we ran into some hurdles. Upon further examination of the data, we discovered that there were very few data points from when visitors were not there. This skews the data simply because there's more data of one than another. Additionally, some months had numerous data points, while other months had only 2 or 1. This makes determining a correlation between the two difficult, as we simply do not have the proper amount of data needed to draw significant conclusions. So in conclusion, I think I've made it fairly clear. With the data available for the scope of our project, there's no significant evidence that visitor presence nor precipitation amounts has a negative or a positive impact on the amount of biomass consumed by the owls. Given the focus of our study and the data we needed to use varied from the scope of Dr. Wiley's study, we realized a bit late that his data wouldn't fully support our research and what we were trying to achieve. So in the future, if we were to conduct this study, we would definitely change the scope of our project. Maybe we could change it to focus solely on all data collected from one singular national park. So instead of choosing 3 locations across 3 parks, we could choose Zion National Park and go through his data specifically collected from Zion and use all locations. The visitor data and precipitation data would all focus on that park as well. Not having a control for the data also provided some difficulties. If we were to look at it again, it would be very important to determine what is considered a normal amount of biomass consumed. This way, we could compare our values with a normal value. Even though our research was not a success, it was an eye-opening experience for scientific research. It's not possible to design a completely unflawed experiment, and sometimes you simply do not have the right data or the amount of data that you need to reach your goal. Thank you.
Thank you.